Hello. You have recently published a peer-reviewed scientific paper. Who are you?
Hello, my name is Stephen Saracini. I am the research manager for a unit at Rice called Business Design.
What is the paper about?
The paper focuses on mobility as a service, or pilots and trials of mobility as a service, and it's an exploration of the extent to which users, so individual travelers, are engaged in the design process.
For which societal actors does the paper provide implications?
It mainly targets entrepreneurs from the private sector and public organizations that are involved in research and innovation projects. To some extent, we also provide outputs that are interesting for funding agencies, and then, of course, researchers that are interested in service design.
What type of contribution does the paper make?
It's an empirical paper. So we focus mainly on methodologies deployed in these sort of multi-actor R&I projects. And as I already mentioned, it's focused on service design.
So what are some conclusions from the paper?
So we looked at like the extent to which users are engaged in these different design processes. And we found that across 4 different projects and pilots, there was really varied engagement. So some projects were very successful in having a very narrow and nuanced focus on trying to address travelers' needs and preferences for different types of mobility services in combination. Others were much less focused on this and instead targeted like the digital interface or the app, which you can use to access MaaS, or agreements with different partners in the business ecosystem, or elements of the physical infrastructure that are essential for providing combined mobility.
What theory, data, and analysis did you use to arrive at these conclusions?
So the theory was mainly based on user-centered service design, where we looked at like different approaches there and took inspiration from like these double diamond methods and concepts such as co-creation or participatory design. The data we actually collected from multiple sources. So we had interviews and surveys with different participants that were involved in these projects. But the main way of collecting data was participant observation, because I and the other 4 authors were all participants in these research and innovation projects. So we were sort of able to witness and recall different discussions and decisions and so on that occurred within each project. And we're able to draw conclusions based on those.
What was special about writing this paper?
The methodology of participant observation was actually quite new to me, and it was somewhat tricky to convince the reviewers that this is a valid approach, because it's very hard to document things that have happened in the past. So I would say that was quite a challenge, but it was also a source of very rich data compared to, say, other qualitative methods, because we were active participants in these projects and really had this sort of inside information that is otherwise very hard to come by as a researcher. So it was both a challenge, but it was also a very rewarding methodology.
And finally, what is the name and journal of the paper?
Yes, it's called MaaS is user-centric, or is it? Evidence from Swedish piloting activities. And you can read it in the journal Research in Transportation, Business and Management.
Thank you very much, Stephen.